they make.
Yes.
So, the principal property ownership. The principal property ownership really could, if you fold that through, you don't need a whole lot else. If you really protected private property, it would protect your First Amendments. And just think, you know, owning a gun is a piece of property. You should be protected in owning a gun. You know. Obviously believed in private property ownership, but they really believed in the ownership of guns. That's why they stuck that Second Amendment in there.
Yeah.
But we are at a point now where financially we're in trouble. We don't know what's going to happen. The dollar is in trouble. It's going to get in worse trouble. And I think something internationally is going on. I think there's a coming together. I think there's one of the reasons why you're seeing so many revolts in the Middle East is not only are they sick and tired of their dictatorships and our puppet governments over there, which they've been for a long time, but I think what they're sensing that we may be a financial paper tiger, maybe even militarily. Yes, in a conventional war, we have more weapons and we spend more money than everybody else put together, and nobody's ever going to attack us, which should make us more secure rather than insecure. But I think people are thinking there's a limit to what the United States can do. Yes. You know, how many more troops can they call up? They have troops, you know, in Iraq and Afghanistan, and you know, we're worried about some people killed in Libya, and we should, you know, be not very sympathetic to that. But in the last couple of years, we killed over 2,000 civilians in Pakistan with our drone missiles. And what are we doing? You know, and they see the inconsistency. Some Americans see the inconsistency, but we've been taught that if you say anything about policy, oh, that means you're un-American. You're not supporting the troops. You're not a patriotic person. Well, I think being patriotic is challenging your government when it's wrong and not going along with it. The world are feeling their oats and they understand what kind of a problem we have. I think the Chinese are aware of it. The Chinese sell weapons as well, but they, you know, those are terrible people over there. You know, they actually make stuff and sell it to us, make profits, and they save the money. And then they go and they invest their money. Yes, they're around the world buying up stuff almost like a capitalist. But what are we doing? We're going and saying, look, we have investments made in Libya and we got to protect those investments. That's what's been going on. But I believe it's coming to an end. It is coming to an end, and they understand our financial conditions and our inability to continue to police the world. It's less popular. There will be too many fires in the world. So we live in truly revolutionary times, but it gives us a tremendous opportunity. Because we have the traditions, we have the beliefs, we have the understanding of private property and contract laws and sound money. The Soviet system and the Russians didn't have that, and they had more turmoil. So we don't have to remake America. All we have to do is restore America and understand the good values of America.
Yes.
But we cannot operate in Washington or any place by perpetuating the conventional wisdom of welfarism and transfer of payments and taking care of the special interests, taking care of the military-industrial complex and the banking-industrial complex and the medical-industrial complex. It's a corporatism run wild. The real tragedy here is that corporatism, which is nothing more than special favors and a combination of government and big business, that freedom is challenged. They say, oh, that's capitalism and that's freedom. That's what free markets do to us, which is untrue. Free markets don't do this. It's the privileges given to a few. It's nothing. You can't argue that bailing out General Motors and the banks, that's not free market capitalism. That's crony capitalism at its worst.
Yeah.
So my challenge is we all should continue to study and understand and how to defend ourselves. that liberty has the moral high ground. And those who have argued that as long as we give goods and services and transfer wealth from one group to another and take care of those who seem to be in need, we have to change that. We have to show that if you want a moral high ground and care about humanitarianism, you vouch for liberty and you vouch for sound money. People who would argue with you that we're cold-hearted and say that we don't care about the poor. You say, yes, you cared about the poor and you wanted to give the poor a house. So you had low interest rates, funny money going on, and you subsidized housing. Guess what? The Depression came, people lost their jobs, and guess who lost their houses? Did the Wall Streeters lose their houses? No, the poor people lost their houses and they lost their mortgages. So the only humanitarian system available to us, the only way you can have productive wealth and a fair distribution, the fairest distribution possible, is through a free market system.
Yes.
And that is keying in on one thing, and that is the protection of individual liberty. That will do it.
Yes.
Arguing the case for liberty, which is the argument that our founders made in a unique manner, provides us the opportunity as individuals to be responsible for working for our excellence and virtue. That should be a personal goal. When government takes over the role of telling you what you have to do to be virtuous and to have a fair income, and then the government can only do that at taking away your liberty. That has to be a personal responsibility. It's imperfect, but just think, it's a lot better than depending on a government that is totally inept and becoming more inept every single day. Personal liberty is a human right. It comes from us in a natural way or a God-given way. It isn't something that the government ever provided for us. The little bit that they should be involved in is protecting that and having maybe being the referee when violence breaks out and the prevention of violence, but not to try to mold people or mold the economy and tell you how you live and what you do. If you mess up, though, and mess up your life when you have your freedom, it's your responsibility, and you can't go crawling to the government and say, take care of me because I messed up. Now, as I want to close this little message, I want to indicate to you that though I am reluctant to travel, I don't like getting on airplanes, but I never resist an invitation to come and talk to young people because I know there's a lot of energy there and here. The energy is that you've recognized that foreign policy intervention is not in your best interest. You recognize that just printing money doesn't make any sense. And you recognize that the welfare state doesn't make us healthier. But the young people that I have met, and they're younger than this crowd, they're high school kids and people that I couldn't ever dream would be interested in some of the things we're talking about, interested in the Constitution and the Federal Reserve. So it's very encouraging to me to see the rumblings going on. And just remember when you're discouraged and say, well, we're only a couple percent, we're 3, 5, 10% of the people who care. Believe me, being in a leadership position and talking this and people wanting to listen to what you say, that makes the difference. So philosophically, things are changing. 10 years ago, we would have never been able to get support at looking at the Federal Reserve like we're getting right now. Things are changing. The educational activity is changing. The internet is tremendously helpful to us. So let's take this energy and make sure it's keyed in on the issue of personal liberty, understand it, and convince other people it is in their best interest.